From Joe Burrow's great precision and decision-making in Cincinnati to Lamar Jackson's electric playmaking in Baltimore, welcome to the AFC North, where the rivalries hit hard and the defense hits even harder. I'm Ty. Welcome back or welcome to America Sports. We preview, we make predictions, but we also want you to make your predictions too. I like to think that the viewers of America Sports have really good insights on football. We've got a nice little challenge going on. Here it is. It's real simple, man. For every division video, you're going to pick the over-under for every single team in the division, and you're going to predict what place each team will come in the division. We will see if you can indeed beat me and everyone else on the leaderboard for every divisional video and also overall. The Kings of the North for the last 2 seasons have been the Baltimore Ravens, and the Bengals won it for 2 straight seasons before them. However, nobody has won the AFC North for 3+ seasons, so that would mean that the division belongs to someone else this year, right? Well, let's find out. Starting with last place, we've got the Cleveland Browns, who in the division they were 2-4, but overall they were 3-14, 1-8 on the road. This year they range from a +3,000 to a +4,000 to win the AFC North, with the lowest win total over/under in the NFL at 4.5. Look, I promise, you have my word right now. As a known Bengals fan, I'm not gonna talk shit. I'm not gonna talk shit about the Cleveland Browns. You have my word. AFC North football is running the ball first and playing a whole hell of a lot of defense and being good on special teams as well. And that's what Cleveland does generally. Look, I know Cleveland's defensive stats last year are going to tell you that they've gotten a lot worse, but nah, I think that's still a pretty good defense over there. And that is why they play well in the AFC North. And you can make an argument that they're one of the better teams to go up against both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. They just have to figure out what's going on at the quarterback position before they can figure out anything else at this point. And then potentially the rest could fall in place. Now, I say that, but that doesn't mean that's the only problem going on. The offensive line hasn't been very good, and they've got to figure out what's going on the road. Usually defense travels, but Cleveland's defense doesn't travel all that often. They're 7-19 over the last 3 years on the road. They've got to get back to the Cleveland Browns that they were a couple years ago, and they bring in a guy like Joe Flacco, to try to get back to that. That's where we get into the additions and the subtractions, because all of a sudden now there's a lot of quarterbacks, and they're hoping to just at least get one starting quarterback. On defense, they lost a hell of a safety and a locker room guy in Thornhill. What makes it even worse, though? He's playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost a big-time pass rusher in Okoronkwo. I think that's how you say it. Dude, I can never say it right. Losing defensive tackle Tomlinson to Arizona also really sucks. On offense, running back Nick Chubb is now in Houston. As a Bengals fan, that man gave us nightmares. They did, however, bring in some offensive line help, guys like Jenkins, who comes from Chicago, and offensive tackle Cornelius Lucas. They signed quarterback Joe Flacco back to the team to be the starter, and also traded with the Eagles to get Kenny Pickett, which makes 2 years in a row of Pickett being traded away to a different team. On top of this, they're still paying a quarterback by the name of Deshaun Watson, you might have heard of him, on an average of $46 million per year. That's for the next 2 years. And nope, it does not stop there either. They drafted 2 quarterbacks in this year's draft as well. You probably didn't hear about that. The saying always goes, if you have 2 quarterbacks, then you've got no quarterbacks. So I don't know what the saying is for if you've got 4 quarterbacks, but I am so glad that I am not tasked with that. Thank God. PFF has this offensive line ranked at number 27, and they've got the defensive line ranked at number 7. I'm not really sure when you have guys like Jack Conklin and Joe Bitonio how you're going to have the 27th rated offensive line, but it wasn't good last year. I look at the schedule, and the first 6 weeks is rough for a team that won 3 games last year. Yeah, it's like the NFL is pissed at these dudes, which again, I'm not ruling out. Joe Flacco has the home game against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati has typically struggled going into Cleveland. They could absolutely win the game. And Joe Flacco could look really good doing it with Cincinnati's secondary and entire defense in question, which we will get to, don't worry. But even if that happens, I could see it getting real ugly real quick for them right after week 1. I would imagine that there's going to be some problems with Myles Garrett if the team is that bad again. So I do have them going over the wins. I don't love it, though. I'm going to be honest. It's just 4.5 is a really low number. And yeah, I've got them finishing in 4th again. There's just too many question marks to go with.
And I'll give them a 2-4 division record. Alright guys, just a fair warning, for the next team, you're about to finally see a little bit of the fan side of me come out. Make sure to let your thoughts be known in the comment section below. Thank you, Armchair Army. Finishing 3rd place with a 9-8 overall record was the Cincinnati Bengals, and they were 3-3 in the division, but they were just short of making the playoffs. This year, they have the 2nd best odds to win the AFC North, ranging from a plus 240 to about plus 280, with their win total over-under being at 9.5. For 2024, if you have the NFL's leading sack getter, and you have statistically the number 1 quarterback in the league, also a plus 38 in point differential and a plus 3 turnover differential, it is unbelievably hard to miss the playoffs when you have those 4 things going really good for you. The Bengals scored 30 points or more in 8 of their games last year. That's almost 45% of the entire freaking season they're scoring 30 or more. Then you add in the team that did all that won their last 5 games of the season. The biggest problem was the defense. Outside of Trey Hendrickson, there was no one getting sacked. So it just felt like we weren't getting great quarterback pressure. We weren't great at stopping the run, and we weren't great on rushing yards ourselves. And then also on special teams, we missed some field goals and extra points that were pretty crucial. But even with all that said, even with as bad as the defense was, if a couple McPherson field goals go in, that extra point goes in against Baltimore, and then Cincinnati ends up 10-7 or 11-6, they get in the playoffs. The Bengals were the wild card team that nobody wanted to get in. While the Bengals didn't lose a ton of super notable guys, this defense has needed all the pieces it can get. However, they did not keep DB Mike Hilton. He is now in Miami. Linebacker Jermaine Pratt is now with the Raiders, and another linebacker in Davis Gaither is with Arizona. Not to mention, the sack leader last year, Trey Hendrickson, is not playing right now. On offense, they lost offensive lineman Trent Brown, and running back Khalil Herbert is with the Indianapolis Colts, along with offensive lineman Alex Capo going to the Raiders. Or at least that was the case with Trey Hendrickson at the time of me making this video, but he has since signed a pay raise, and he's going to be back on the field, which is great news for us. I'm just glad that he's going to be playing football for the Bengals this year. It also wouldn't be right of me if I did not discuss the retirement of one Sam Hubbard. Hubbard was a hometown hero here as he grew up in Cincinnati, played his college ball at Ohio State, and then the Bengals took him in the 3rd round of the 2018 draft. Hubbard, I'm pretty sure, was a starter right away and racked up 38.5 career sacks with Cincinnati. Salute to Sam Hubbard, and I hope you have a great retirement. You will be missed. Their additions include a good run stopper in defensive tackle TJ Slayton, a versatile linebacker in Oren Burks, which makes a good linebacking crew. Running back Samaje Perine comes back to the team, and they got some offensive line help in Dalton Reisner. PFF has the offensive line ranked at 31st and the defensive line ranked at 25th. While I do think, and maybe you can call me a homer, that both of these lines are a little bit better than that, it's not by much. It's pretty fair. I think Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims, I think both of them are going to be better this year. As we take a look at the schedule, I really like it. Now, the first 7 weeks are challenging for a team that got 3rd in the division. I did say I liked the schedule for us last year too, though. But it looks to me like Cincinnati is finally taking the start of the season seriously. And I do think that Cincinnati turns around the start of the season, and they will at least be 1-1 after the first 2 weeks. Weeks 13 through 15 are definitely the hardest for Cincinnati, I would say, but if you just win 1 or 2 of those, you're in a good situation to, in my opinion, be 10-7 this year. I've got them at 10-7, and I've got them in 2nd place in the AFC North. Good stuff. Now this comes down to 2 teams. Predict who you think will win the division this year in the comments below. Finishing in second place last year was the Pittsburgh Steelers with a 10-7 overall record, 3-3 in the division. Pittsburgh got in as a wild card, but got shellacked in the playoffs, which has become sort of a habit for them, but hey, at least they make the playoffs, right? This year, they have the 3rd best odds to win the North, ranging from plus 500 to about plus 550, and their win total over-under is at 8.5. The Pittsburgh Steelers, not only last year, but of the entire 2020s, have been the epitome of consistency. So consistent that, in my mind, this makes for one of the easiest teams to predict in all of the NFL. A consistently very good defense, a consistent run game, consistently very good at special teams, which is hard to do. But Danny Smith, the special teams coordinator who has been there for 12 years, has really figured this out. You know they're going to be good. When you think about AFC playoff locks, they're really up there on the same list with Buffalo and Kansas City of the 2020s. Houston and Baltimore kind of is now. And a consistent 9-8, 10-7 season in making the playoffs, but the problem is they've not had a real shot at winning in the playoffs. In fact, each team in the AFC North has won a playoff game before Pittsburgh has, yet they are the team that make it every year. Starting with the losses, the Steelers lost linebacker Landon Roberts to the Raiders. DB Dante Jackson and running back Najee Harris both went to the Chargers. Quarterback Justin Fields went to the Jets. And they lost 2 very important offensive linemen in Dan Moore and James Daniels, along with the roster cut of defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi. Quite a bit of losses, but the Steelers were busy this offseason, especially when it comes to bolstering up that secondary. DBs Darius Slay and Brendan Eccles are now on the team, along with the safety Juan Thornhill, who we talked about was in Cleveland. On offense, wide receiver George Pickens is gone to Dallas, but they were able to trade for wide receiver DK Metcalf. Oh yeah, and also, their quarterback is now Aaron Rodgers. And this is not exaggeration, in my opinion anyways. I think this is probably the best secondary in the NFL. They have one of the most accurate kickers in Chris Boswell. If you have a defense, a good run game, and good special teams, yeah, you're likely going to be in the mix all the time. They're just not able to score with the teams like Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo. So when the playoffs come, they end up playing one of those 3 teams, and it's not close. PFF has the offensive line ranked at number 21, and they have the defensive line ranked number 1. If that was true, along with my secondary rankings of number 1, this would definitely be the number 1 defense. To me, though, I don't think this is the best defensive line, but it's easily top 5, could be top 3, it's debatable. They do have an early bye week, which is in week 5, but right after that is when they finally play their first AFC North game. Everybody else in the AFC North will at least have played one. Right before the bye week, they'll be playing Minnesota in Dublin, and that's considered a home game for Pittsburgh, so they kind of lose that. And in the schedule, they don't have to play Baltimore until week 14. So yeah, you really have to like their first half of the season. I mean, you really do. And then by the time week 18 rolls around, it's against Baltimore. And who knows what it could be like for Baltimore. There's a chance that Baltimore might not be playing for anything, or it could be easily the biggest game of the year. Yeah, so I've got them finishing in third place. I see them 9-8, 10-7. I see them at best 11-6. Like I don't know if this team's going 12-5. Do you guys see this team getting out of Wild Card Weekend this year and becoming a legit Super Bowl contender? Or is Aaron Rodgers just another quarterback caught in the quarterback carousel at Pittsburgh? Let me know your thoughts. So that obviously means I think that the Ravens are going to do the unthinkable and win the division for the third year in a row. But let's break down how and see what they've done. The Kings of the North of last year and the year before were the Baltimore Ravens with a 12-5 overall record, and they were 4-2 in the division. The Ravens lost to the Bills in the divisional rounds of the playoffs last year, but this year they're the favorites to win the North again, pretty safely in that minus 160 range, with their win total over-under being at 11.5, which is tied for the most. They scored 30 points per game 11 times last year, including in their last 4 games of the regular season, and those were all wins heading into the postseason too. It was about as good as it could look. Lamar Jackson's regular season record over the past couple of years have been outstanding. And he had incredible stats. Look, to me, the two best quarterbacks are in the same division in the AFC North. It's Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, at least by the numbers. Some of the best games of the year and some of the best games that I've seen like ever, man, was Baltimore and Cincinnati last year. The Ravens really didn't lose a ton here. The biggest were losing offensive lineman Patrick McCarry. He's now with the Jaguars. DB Brandon Stevens is now with the Jets. And linebacker Malik Harrison is with the Steelers, like we mentioned. Meanwhile, there weren't a ton of additions either, but they were pretty significant. Guys like linebacker Jake Hummel, defensive tackle John Jenkins, wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, and DB Chido Awuzie. Along with what I consider to be great re-signings like fullback Patrick Ricard and tackle Ronnie Staley. At full strength, I don't know how many starter or actual minutes that these additions are going to get, but when you're able to get these guys for the cheap, and a few of them are some pretty big names at least for veteran leadership, that just adds to the depth. And they were already really good on defense. They already have some wide receivers. All of this is just building towards a Super Bowl contending team. PFF has this offensive line rated at number 17 with the defensive line rated at number 10. The offensive line is fine, but I think Baltimore should be at least a little bit better than that, at least ahead of the Rams at number 9. This is a team that was number 2 in sacks total, and also far and away best at stopping the run. And a lot of that does have to do with the fact that teams opted to pass on Baltimore, but it also has to do with the fact that they're really good at stopping the run, while also last year being number 9 in points per game allowed. Look, I realize that Michael Pierce retired and Kyle Van Noy is getting up there in age, but you still got to give this Baltimore defensive line a lot of credit. Yeah, I mean, number 7 in pass yards per game as an offense, number 1 in the rush. That's getting more rush yards per game than the Philadelphia Eagles. That's really getting it done. I look at the schedule, and the first part of it is tough, even tougher than the first part of the schedule last year when they came out of the gate a little bit slow. They started 2-2 after 4 games and then really got it going. I mean, you're at Buffalo. You're playing division rival Cleveland, who usually gets you one time. Week 3, you're home for Detroit. Then you go to Kansas City, home for Houston, home for the Rams. Yeah, those first 6 games right before the bye week, and they're going to need that bye week, is crucial. If they start off, 4-2 after 6 games, then they're going to have an unbelievable record. Just like Cincinnati, weeks 13 through 15 are pretty brutal, and a lot of it is because they play each other twice, but in between that, Baltimore has to play Pittsburgh too. And Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, especially Pittsburgh, I mean, they're going to try to beat you up. So 3 straight weeks of AFC North football when it's going to be cold too, or colder anyway. But like I said, if they finish better than 500 and even at 500, you could still feel very good about winning the division, and that's where I've got them at, man. I am going to go under for the wins though, because I picked over for everybody else. I have them at 11-6 overall and 4-2 in the division. But that is going to wrap up the AFC North preview. I am sorry that I was not able to get all of these division videos out before the season has started. We're not going to abandon the rest of the divisions, though. We're going to keep predicting even when games are being played, over the weeks to come. I just got too wrapped up, got too busy. Maybe if we grow and people keep watching and subscribing and doing all the good shit that you guys do, well, who knows? Maybe we could make this a thing that I could put a lot of time into. But the NFL season is here now, guys. So we are going to get busy with predictions and power rankings. So that is it for me, guys. You will see me in the next one.